Okay, so I made one video about the difference between gay and queer, and I guess this is kind of like a sequel to that. I spend a lot of time thinking about conservatives and trying to understand conservatives because they're kind of like the basis of Western civilization. Not that in their carrying the fire, they're not really the ones who were, carrying the tradition, but Western civilization only exists due to the presence of conservatives. Otherwise, we would go into socialism and completely collapse. And conservatism is kind of defined in opposition to something else. Conservatives want things to more or less kind of stay the same. They don't want things to change too fast. They're okay with change, just not too fast. So, because of those things, a lot of conservatives are opposed to homosexuality, gay marriage, and all that kind of stuff. Not just because of what it is, but because there's another group out there that is promoting homosexuality and gay marriage as something that's, like the way forward or the path forward, or needs to define us more better. So I've got a couple of books that I've had for quite a while. This one by Dover is called Greek Homosexuality, and this one by Williams is called Roman Homosexuality. So this book, the Greek one, just like Greeks in general, came first, and this one came, I think this book about the Greek stuff is maybe 78, and then this one is something like 92. So this book is really, really good, and if you haven't read it and you are interested in classical civilization or where we as Westerners come from, I'd recommend to read this one. It's not preachy. It's not trying to tell you that everyone needs to be gay, or that that all of our great thinkers were gay. It doesn't really even have a thesis. It's just good descriptive material about the people who wrote the founding documents for our civilization. The reason why I decided to make this video is because that mayor of Portland, Oregon, or whatever he was, just resigned due to all those child abuse charges. And I was reminded of this plate. If you can see this, this is a picture of Zeus carrying off Ganymede. All right, I mean, he's got his arm around him and he's just running off down the road with him. On the cover here, this is also Ganymede. He's just a young kid having fun, naked, having a good time, and then Zeus is just going to fly in and grab him and carry him off, and they're going to have a pederastic relationship. Ooh. So I mean, that makes me a little uncomfortable because I'm not really a conservative, but I guess I am a little bit. I don't know. Anyhow, I'd recommend for you to read the book, and kind of like the point of these two books together, I guess to me would be that in olden times you don't really have the same sexualities that you have today. Most people would identify themselves as either heterosexual or homosexual, whereas at least for men in these societies, people who were at least in the middle class, and definitely people in the upper class, they weren't strictly heterosexual or homosexual. Most of them were bisexual. And for the Greeks, the Athenians in particular, they had a pretty definite progression of how a man would develop. And it would be, as a boy, he would have a romance with an adult man. Pretty strange. He would get his pick of which man he wanted to associate with, and I guess if he didn't want to associate with any, he could do that too. But then when he grew up and became a full man, he would start chasing, teenage boys, just as he was chased one day. But then once he progressed even further beyond that, then he would get married and start having kids. So it doesn't really match up with most of the conversations that we today, Westerners, whoever, have about either you're born straight or you're born gay, or your sexual proclivities are part of your political identity. These guys, they did not have that. This wasn't politics for them at all. The Roman book, this one is really good because it talks about how everyone's sexual preferences were used as ammunition against them in politics. So they would say that this guy over here who really likes to have sex with women, he's untrustworthy, because obviously any female prostitute in the city is going to be able to get his attention and twist his mind. Or someone who just has too much sex in general, they're obviously unfocused and therefore they're untrustworthy. Their main hang-up was if you are the submissive partner in a male homosexual relationship, that was viewed to be lesser status. So that was really pretty much the only thing that everybody definitely looked down on, whereas everything else, just kind of opened you up to all sorts of different attacks. But they just didn't have a strictly homosexual versus heterosexual viewpoint. They basically viewed probably bisexuality as like the default. And then some people tend towards one side or the other, but I guess most people are somewhere in between. I don't know. We know they had a lot of kids, so we know there was a lot of heterosexual activity going on as well, right? At a bare minimum. But then you go look at a lot of their art, pieces like this, where they're obviously celebrating in the form of a naked young boy, and that's attracting a lot of their attention as well. So kind of confusing, kind of weird. But I guess this video is just kind of like me thinking about these ideas and thinking about conservatives and about how they think, well, I'm basically anti-homosexual because it's either an attack on the traditional family or someone's pushing it on me. And I kind of get both of those viewpoints. But if you push back where we come from intellectually to the recorded foundations of that tradition, the conversation is just like completely different. And for one, it's more like gay instead of queer, right? As I tried to explain in my previous video, and I think that's why they weren't so much hung up about it. It wasn't a political affiliation, it was just stuff people did. Okay, thanks for sticking with me. I know this was kind of a weird one. Appreciate you for your time.